halfway through it, I had a computer glitch and it all went black. So I had to go dashing into my bedroom and go on the phone.
Yes, we saw you disappear. Authority provide me with a headphone and mic. Good afternoon all. Welcome councillors to this live stream meeting of the Audit Committee of Bolsover District Council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn the meeting until the connection has been re-established. This meeting is also being recorded. Can the facilitator, Tom, confirm who is in remote attendance at this meeting? Tom.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just do a roll call of the members that we have in attendance who are members of the Audit Committee. I'll just go through all your names that are in attendance, and if I could, when I say your name, if you could confirm your title, the ward that you represent, and confirm for the stream that you can see and hear me. Thank you. First of all, Councillor Tom Munro.
Councillor Tom Munro, Whitwell Ward, Chairman of the Audit Committee.
Can you hear and see me, Councillor Munro?
Yes, I can hear and see
Thank
you.
Councillor Tom Kirkham.
Councillor Tom Kirkham, Hucknall Ward, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Ruth Jaffray, the co-opted member.
Yes, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Councillor David Dixon.
Councillor David Dixon, Barber Ward. Yes, I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Salt.
Yeah, Councillor Dan Salt, Clan West. I can hear and see you.
Councillor Jim Clifton.
Councillor Jim Clifton, Hampton with Cresswell, sight and vision and sound okay, thank you.
In addition, we also have portfolio holder Councillor Clive Mosby in the leaders meeting room. And the officers in attendance at the meeting are Teresa Fletcher, the section 151 officer, Jenny Williams, the internal audit manager, Mike Norman from Mazars, and Tom Scott, governance officer, and Alison Bluff, governance officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Tom. Much appreciated. I will now hand over to Tom again, who is going to explain some of the procedures for the meeting. So over to you again, please, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Before we start the meeting, members are reminded of the meeting etiquette that has been circulated to them. All members should have their microphones off during the meeting unless you wish to speak and you've been called on. Members attending remotely, please leave your cameras on during the meeting. Also, for remote members to request to speak, please use the chat function to type speak or raise your hand on camera. The chair will then call on you to speak during the discussion debate. When a vote is to be taken, this will be by a show of hands. For those attending remotely, please ensure your hand is visible on camera. If any member is disconnected from the meeting, please try and rejoin as quickly as possible. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact one of the support officers assigned to this meeting in my email to you. If you are about to speak, the meeting will wait a few moments for you to rejoin. Chair, I will now hand back to you to start the agenda.
Thank you very much indeed, Tom. I will now begin the agenda. Please note that a supplementary agenda was circulated to the committee, which included the audit completion report from Mazars for discussion at agenda item 6. First of all, item 1, which is apologies for absence. Alison or Tom, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
I've not received any, Chair.
Thank you. Tom?
No, I have no apologies, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll move on then, if we can, to urgent items. I am pleased to report that I have no urgent items for today's meeting. So we'll move on, if we may, to item 3, which is declarations of interest.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chair. We've just been joined by Mark Surridge. So for the benefit of the stream, if I could just get Mark to introduce himself, if you wouldn't mind, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Good afternoon. This is Mark Surridge, the engagement lead from Mazars, your external auditors.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome, Mark. Thank you. Right, I'll continue if I may. Right, so as per usual practice, could I ask if there are any declarations to be made for today's meeting, please? Okay,
That's nobody, Chair.
that's nobody. Thank you. Right, we'll move on, if we may, to item 4, which starts on page 4 of your agenda pack, and that is minutes of the last meeting. So we have the minutes from the 28th of January for approval. I will be more than happy to move these as a true and accurate record. Could I have a seconder, please?
I will second that, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed. That's been seconded by Councillor David Dixon. Are all members in favour? Please show by raising a hand in front of you so we can see it. 1, 2, 3. That is unanimous among the members. Thank you. Right, we'll move on then to item 5, which is notes. And this was for a meeting that held on the 25th of February that was not quorate, and therefore that is why this is notes. So it's for information only and discussion, as it's just a record of the notes taken, and there's nothing to ratify from these notes. So I will receive and note them unless there are any objections. So are there any objections from any members to receiving and accepting those notes? No, thank you very much indeed. And we'll move on, if we may. We're going to move on now to item 6. That's the report to those charged with governance audit completion report. We're now going to consider the audit completion report from Mazars, which is in your supplementary agenda pack. That's the smaller one you received. We have Mike Norman from Mazars and also Mark Surridge from Mazars, but I'm assuming that Mike Norman is going to lead on this. So I'd like to invite Mike to present the report. Mike, over to you.
I probably should have said at the beginning, Councillor Munro, our item is very closely related to later items in the agenda, number 10 and number 11, which are the going concern and the accounts items. So I'm a bit anxious if we present our report now, you might have forgotten what I've said when we get to that farther down the agenda. Did you want to shunt us down the agenda so we can catch up, or did you want to bring those other 2 items forward?
Right, I'm happy to be guided by members. Would members be happy to shunt down item 6 to item, it will then become item, I imagine, 13. Do you want it before or after those 2 items, Mike?
Probably before the accounts, so you can then consider the accounts in the context of what we've...
okay, in which case we'll need to take it, if I may, just shuffle through my papers. Please forgive me while I turn to that item on the agenda. Can I suggest then that we take it after item 9?
Yes.
Is that okay? Could I ask members if they're happy with that course of action? Could you indicate, please, that you're happy? Thank you very much indeed. In which case, we will move on with great enthusiasm to item 7, Internal Audit Consortium. That's 2019 to 20 annual report. And that is going to be presented by Jenny Williams. Good afternoon, Jenny, and welcome. So I'm now going to invite Jenny to take us through her report, and her report starts on page 14 and runs to page 22. So Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Jenny Williams from the Internal Audit Consortium. So the purpose of this report is to summarise the work that we've undertaken in 2019-20 and to give an opinion on the overall internal control environment. So the report has been prepared taking into account the requirements of the public sector internal audit standards. So in spite of COVID-19, we did manage to complete the vast majority of the 2019-20 plan, and that does enable me to provide an opinion. The table on page 2 of your report, it shows that we issued 28 reports in 1920, and 100% of those reports got our top 2 criteria of substantial or reasonable. So you've had no limited or inadequate reports during the year, so that's a very positive result. So all of these reports have been included on progress reports during the year, the last of which is on today's agenda. Appendix A of the report shows you the names of those reports that we've issued and the opinion from previous time we looked at that area. At paragraph 1.6, you'll be pleased to note that we had no issues relating to fraud. The table on page 3, that's our performance indicators. We achieved 82% of the plan against a target of 96%, and that was due to COVID-19, but we also had 2 auditors leave during the year, and we also found that the SIP for apprenticeships we were sponsoring took quite a lot of time up as well. So because of that, for 2021, I've set a target of 75% because we are still being impacted by COVID issues. The rest of the indicators were all positive, and I'm pleased to see that our customer satisfaction results are up at 94%. So paragraphs 1.8 to 1.12 detail the overall conclusion on the adequacy of the Council's control environment. And in my opinion, as the Internal Audit Consortium Manager, we can give reasonable assurance. 100% of the areas receive substantial or reasonable assurance, so you can have confidence in your governance, risk management and control areas. So we've considered controls during the year when preparing the annual governance statement, and we felt that there was no issues arising from audit work that needed to be included in the governance statement. Paragraph 115 details a comparison of work from the plan against what we've done. There were 6 reviews that we didn't complete. One of these elections we have now completed, and the remaining 5, which were for facilities management, IR35, use of consultants, homelessness and members' expenses, we'll risk assess those in the light of COVID-19 and the areas in the 2021 plan as to when they'll be completed. So moving on to compliance with the public sector audit standards. In May, I undertook a self-assessment, and from that I concluded that we are meeting the standards. In October 16, which seems quite a long time ago now, we did have an external review, and they confirmed we're compliant with, and in some places exceeded the standards. We are due a further review in the summer of 21, because we have to have one every 5 years, and that's the subject of a report later in this agenda. So we do have quality control procedures in place, and so all my staff are aware of what's required of them in the public sector internal audit standards. I can also confirm that I feel that we are independent and that I do have a direct line to the Strategic Alliance Management Team if I need it, and also to this committee. So page 6 of the report mentions the Internal Audit Charter. So I have reviewed that, and again, that's on later in this agenda for the committee to have a look at and approve. So the recommendation is the Internal Audit Consortium Annual Report for 2019-20 be noted, and I'll try and answer any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Jenny, for your report. Members, do any of you have any questions to this report, please? Yes, Clive.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair. I've not complied with your wishes and kept quiet. I just really want to thank Internal Audit for the work they've done. I know part of this plan was done, under these extreme conditions of COVID, and a lot of homework has been done on this, and I think it's been, I think it's worked quite well within it all. So it's just really, thanks to everybody within Internal Audit for the work they've done and for the good results that we've got as regards our controls and monitoring. It's a good report, and I'm really pleased with it all. So, just to comment, say thanks to everybody for what they've done.
Thank you very much indeed, Clive. I'm sorry, I should have made it clear. Clive is the portfolio holder responsible for finance. Thank you. Right, are there any other members now have any questions to Jenny on her report? Right, in that case, if I may, I will move the recommendations at 6.1 that the Internal Audit Consortium annual report be noted. Does that receive a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second that, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, David. Right, all those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on then, if we may, to agenda item 8. And agenda item 8, it's the external review of internal audit. And that again is going to be presented by Jenny Williams, who will report this, cover this report for us. Jenny, would you like to begin, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. The public sector internal audit standards do require that we have an external review of audit every 5 years. And that's to provide members with the confidence that we are acting in line with best practice. So our last review took place, for those of you who remember, in July 2016, and we've reported the results in October. And so that means our next review is due in July 21. So the standards do require that I let members know this in advance and consult with them. So I'm proposing that the review really takes the form of an assessment against the public sector internal audit standards checklist. There's a big checklist of all the things that we're supposed to do, and I believe that that will identify any areas for improvement. I'm also proposing that I get quotes from suitably qualified parties. Peer reviews haven't really taken off in the Midlands. There's difficulties in swapping arrangements and potential souring relationships. So that's probably not an avenue we want to go down. I did survey the Midlands Audit Group to see which parties they'd use to conduct their external reviews. And there was a surprisingly small number, actually. It was evenly split between CITFA, which is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and Robin Pritchard from a firm called Gateway Ashore. And he was the one that actually undertook our review in 2016. So I would start with probably asking both of those two to quote, because we know they've got the correct qualifications and for undertaking the reviews. So what I'm asking in this report is that committee delegate authority to myself and to the 151 officers to agree a specification for the review. When they undertake the review, it would involve completing the public sector internal audit standards checklist. They'd review our working processes, they'd look at our documentation such as the charter, they'd look at our working papers and records, and they'd probably want to interview some officers and maybe the chair of the audit committee. And in that way they form an opinion on how we work and if we're providing the service that we should be providing. So I'm intending to write this specification and agree it within the next couple of months, and then go out to get quotes after Christmas with a view to having the review in sort of between May and July next year. And with that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions. Councillor Munro, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I clicked and it didn't come off, and it should have. I'll repeat. Thank you, Jenny, very much for your report. Are there any councillors who wish to ask any questions of the report and the recommendations at 6.1 that Jenny has just outlined, that she proceed to preparing a brief to which people can quote? So are there any questions, first of all? Nope. In that case, if you look at the recommendation at 6.1 and 6.2, I am happy to move those from the chair. Does that receive a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Seconded by Councillor Dixon. All in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely. Move on then, if we may, to item 9, which is review of the internal audit charter. This is going to be again presented by Jenny Williams. So over to you, Jenny, to present this report. And just so members know, this report is based on pages 28 to 38 in your pack. Thank you, Jenny. Over to you.
Thank you. So this committee last reviewed and approved our audit charter in July 2018. It's basically our terms of reference that we changed the name to charter. And we did agree we'd review the charter again in 2 years' time, which is now. So the standards do require that the charter sets out our purpose, authority and responsibility, and that should be formally defined. There haven't been any changes to the public sector internal audit standards since you last approved the charter. So on having a look at it again, I still think that it's fit for purpose. The only thing I've updated is the job titles for the Director of Corporate Resources. CIPFA are now actually recommending that the charter be reviewed on an annual basis. And so I will be bringing it to you every year from now on. I think that's just in case there's any change of members, and just to refresh memories of sort of what it includes and what it's all about. So the recommendation is members note and agree the review of the charter. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That wasn't me. I didn't bark. Somebody.
She is shut out. It's mine, I'm afraid.
Jenny, you're presenting beautifully, but we've got one or two little dogs and phones, kid.
Apologies.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendations. Are there any questions before I take the recommendations, please? Right, there are no questions. Okay, I'll move the recommendations at 6.1, 6.2 and 6.3. Okay, does that receive a seconder, please?
Councillor Clifton, second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clifton. All those in favour, please indicate. That's agreed unanimously. Right, we'll move on now, if we may, please, to the new item 10, which is now the Mazars report, which was sent in your separate document and is entitled the Audit Completion Report. And I will now invite Mike Norman to present the report. Mike, over to you, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Take two on our report. I'm not sure if Mark's still on the call or wants to say anything before I kick off. What I was aiming to do was summarise the main findings in the report. So I think the key points to say is this is one of our, the second main communication that we have with the Audit Committee. It follows the audit strategy memo, which we presented back in January, which feels like a lifetime ago at the moment. Setting out our priorities for the 1920 audit of the accounts and other responsibilities, and summarising the key risks that we faced at that time. What we're required to do at this point is having substantially completed the audit, is give you as the audit committee some feedback on our findings and our proposed audit opinion to use as a basis for informing your judgment in relation to the statement of accounts, which is one of the forthcoming agenda items, coupled with a supplementary report in relation to going concern and how that's reflected in the financial statements. So I was going to just take the report as read. I appreciate it was issued separately, and there is one significant thing to update the audit committee on, and I'll get to that in the stage. But really talking to the executive summary, which starts on page 3 of our report, page 7 of the documents. specific reporting in relation to whole of government accounts and any broader reporting responsibilities we've got. I really to confirm, and we will provide more information as we go through the report, that we are proposing, subject to completion of the remaining stages of the audit, to give an unqualified opinion on the updated financial statements, and we expect to again give an unqualified value for money conclusion. We have a specific reporting responsibility relating to whole of government accounts. Now that work can't be carried out at this stage. That work follows instructions issued by the National Audit Office, and normally they would be issued by now and we would have been able to complete the work. Given the delays in COVID and the need for them to confirm their own reporting arrangements, they've not issued those instructions yet. So we can't complete that, but it doesn't hold up the other aspects of the audit. What it does mean, unfortunately, is that normally with our audit report, we would issue both the conclusion from value for money, the opinion on the accounts, and what we call the audit certificate, which closes the audit formally and confirms that we've completed all of our legal responsibilities. Unfortunately, one of the legal responsibilities relates to the whole of government accounts, so clearly we can't issue the certificate at this stage, but we would expect to proceed to issue the report to allow you to publish your financial statements. Page 4 of our report, page 7 of the papers, gives a position statement on the remaining sections of the work. And really it's around wrapping up on any residual queries in the main, and also waiting on information from third parties. The one significant third party that we rely on information for relates to the assurances for the pensions aspects of the financial statements. That work's still in progress in relation to the pension fund auditors at Derbyshire, as it is, to be frank, at most pension funds throughout the country at the moment. The whole deadline, timetables, etc., has been significantly impacted by COVID, and there are a number of issues to address as part of that. At this stage, we're not aware of any issues relating to that assurance, but clearly we need to wait until the assurances have been received, so then we can take it into account as part of wrapping up on that particular area of the work. We do draw attention in that page 8 to another issue, the McLeod case, but I'll comment on that later. And also to confirm within there the status of the whole of government accounts and where we are on the audit. I was going to move to page 10 of our report, which is section 2. And this is where we set out our main conclusions around the significant risks that we identified in our audit strategy memo back in January, and other issues that we're required to report regarding the completion of the work and the areas that and our audit approach. So what I should have said is the significant risks identified at the outset of the audit relating to the inherent risk of management override of controls, the valuation of plant, property and equipment, well, land and buildings and investment properties, and the pensions valuation, they're largely unchanged and didn't require a change of scope in the audit. There was a change of emphasis as the work emerged, as some of the valuations were significantly impacted by COVID-19 issues and the ability to get fair values for some of those items. But the broad approach was unchanged. To confirm, we comment on the significant findings, I guess, in relation to the significant risks. First one on page 11, where we comment on the valuation of land and buildings and investment properties. One of the amendments to the draft financial statements has been an inclusion at note 4, and Patricia will cover this, of a disclosed material uncertainty by your valuer. Valuers operate according to guidance issued by Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and to all of their members there was a set of guidance which was issued at the end of March, recognising that there were some issues in being able to determine market values for various properties. And as part of that, valuers were expected to include within their report a material uncertainty, basically saying that it's an estimate, it's probably a bit more, a bit less reliable than in previous years, and needs to be viewed in that context. Clearly, as an expert, if that's the advice that you're being provided with, it's then natural for you to then include it in as a disclosure in your financial statements. That's common practice this year, and given that you've disclosed that in your accounts, we're proposing as part of our audit report simply to draw attention to that note within your financial statements, what's called an emphasis of matter paragraph. The precise wording of that is undergoing internal consultation. What I would say is we're expecting to include that paragraph at virtually all of our clients across the East Midlands, and indeed nationally, and it does seem to be a pretty common practice this year. Page 12 of our document, I just said a little bit more about the work on we've needed to do around the pensions liability and where we are on that. An issue emerged last year relating to the pension liabilities that have been included within the financial statements, which required councils to get updated valuation reports. One particular case which was covered as part of that, the McLeod case, there's been a bit of movement more recently, and the proposed settlement of that legal case, which triggered a liability, has actually meant that some of the liabilities were overstated. And what the councillors, at the time we wrote this report, the council had requested a supplementary IAS 19 report to determine the value of the overstatement. My understanding is that report's now available, although in itself the difference isn't material. It has triggered the requirement to make some changes to the financial statements. Just to say, I think these are accounting estimates. They do not affect council taxpayers' money or the bottom line in its broadest sense. But I'm sure Teresa will take you through the adjustments required for that when she comes to her paper later in the agenda. Then to go forward to page excuse me, page 10 of our report, page 14, describes some of the other issues that we've faced this year. And I think it's fair to say that significant matters, issues with the orders, etc., it's probably a bigger section this year than it would have been in most previous years. And that's largely context of the COVID, having to carry out the work under the COVID setting with the extension of the deadlines and the financial implications in relation to that. Bringing with that the need to focus on some of the going concern areas, and there's a supplementary report that Teresa will take you through regarding the council's position on that, and also recognising that there's some additional quality expectations of our regulators which have required additional work during the year. And what we've done is set out within that section the main findings. I think the point I probably would want to stress is that given, although the extension of the accounts deadline was to the end of August, the council and Teresa and the team was still able to largely comply with the previous timetable in preparing the accounts. And also during the audit itself, which was obviously carried out on a remote footing and was testing, we did have the full cooperation and support from management and officers, and I think it's important to recognise that we do appreciate that as part of our work. Section 4, it's page 17 or page 13 of the report, sets out, this is the section I need to update the committee on, and we will provide a formal update to this by way of a follow-up letter when we issue the opinion. first point to say is that no material misstatements had been identified during the year. That is still the case. The change that's required relates to the table that we've set out there relating to unadjusted misstatements. At the date the report was written, we were waiting on the updated IS19 report from the pension fund. That was received shortly after this report was issued, and my understanding is that management proposed to update the financial statements for the changes in the pension liability and the pension asset. So in that situation, there will be no unadjusted misstatements in the final statements, and that in turn feeds through to the letter of representation at Appendix A, and we will not need, in that context, some assurances from the Audit Committee in relation to their agreement with management to not change the statements. Section 5 covers the value for money conclusion. So this is the final value for money conclusion under the current Code of Audit Practice. The Code of Audit Practice is updated every 5 years, and one of the areas that they've particularly refreshed for years 2021 onwards is the value for money conclusion requirements. Now, clearly, the main focus of our work was around the financial sustainability of the council. We have updated our assessment that carried out in January to reflect the current situation as it can, and obviously the pressures that the council's facing under COVID. Our overall conclusion is that, again, we expect to be able to give an unqualified value for money conclusion. We've naturally referred to the issues that the council and everybody in the sector is having to deal with currently relating to managing the COVID-19 pandemic. It's safe to say that whilst challenging, the council has responded well to those pressures. The impact on its financial position, as far as we can see within 2021, has not been as significant as we've seen at some other councils, particularly those that are relying on significant sources of income collection, etc. But nevertheless, it's clearly a significant focus for the council going forward and currently, and will be a main focus of our audit for 2021. And then finally, we've got two appendices. First of all, relates to a management representation letter. It again is standard practice. There are no specific items in the letter that I think I need to flag as being unusual. So that we will look to hopefully get the Audit Committee to agree for the Director, for Teresa to sign that once we're able to give the opinion. And then finally, the draft auditor's report as Appendix A. As I say, that will be updated to include the emphasis of matter paragraph that I referred to earlier on, and obviously would I was trying to reassure the committee that it is a normal process to include the emphasis of matter paragraph. The wording, although to be agreed, is largely simply just referring to the disclosure that you've already made in note 4 of your financial statements. So that's sort of the points I wanted to cover. Again, I'm not sure if Mark's on the call and if there's any comments he wanted to make in relation to that before. Obviously happy to deal with any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Mark, did you want to add any further detail or comment?
We're more than happy to take questions on any specific matters in here. I think Mike's explained everything particularly well. The modification around valuation uncertainty is not bespoke and specific to your local authority. I think we can't emphasise that enough. It is a modification in the opinion, but it is consistent with other organisations and therefore completely outside of your control. I personally want to just reiterate my thanks through to the finance team. COVID-19, the disruption that's been caused by this has meant that our audit is taking longer than it would, and longer than what we would like. But the patience and support that we've had from the finance team has been very good. So I do want to make sure we pass over those thanks. So I think that's the most important piece. But again, we'd be more than happy to take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mark. Right. Obviously, I'd like to thank you for your positive comments about our finance team, and obviously echo them, because we do appreciate just how difficult it has been and how hard our own finance team work alongside you and cooperatively with you. So now, are there any members who would like to ask any questions, please, about the auditor's report? Are there any questions that anybody has that'd like further clarification on? Yes, Tom Kirkham, Councillor Kirkham.
Thank you, Chair. Will the COVID-19 have any impact on the pensions, do you think, or is that just too longer term financial investment for it to affect it?
It will have an impact on pension streams, but I think you need to differentiate between short term and long term on that. So for this year end in specifically, there are, there will be a short term impact, particularly around. Initially, we had concerns about uncertainty in pension fund assets and the valuation of those. So when COVID-19 struck, obviously trading stopped. There's no market data for a number of assets. So on a shorter term basis, there was a concern over actually how do you value assets when you've got no benchmark to do that. Over a longer term basis, I think we won't really see the difference until the next triennial review, which is in 3 years' time. But the impact will then be stretched over, 25 years. So until that point, I would say we won't really know the details behind it.
Is that okay, Councillor Kirkham? Yes, thank you. Anybody else got any questions? Right, well, on behalf of the Audit Committee, can I thank both you, Mark and Mike, for your contributions. It's been very helpful. I'm now going to, forgive me, go back to that item and see if there's a need for a recommendation to note the report, and I suspect there will be. Right, at item 6, right. Would somebody like to move that we note the report and the letter of representation at Appendix A? Would one of my members like to move that? That's been moved by...
I'd like to move that, Chair.
And Councillor Clifton, are you prepared to second that? You are. Thank you very much indeed. Right. We seem, forgive me for a second, but Tom Scott, we seem to have lost Councillor Dan Salt.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Salt's having Wi-Fi problems at home and he's had to depart the meeting.
Thank you. Okay. So we're all going back to that then. It's been moved and seconded. Could all members present please indicate whether they're happy with that? Thank you. Right, that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. So now, returning to my script at the right place, we now take the new agenda item 11, which is the old agenda item 10, which is the report of the internal audit summary of progress on the internal audit plan. Oh no, sorry, item 11, assessment of going concern. I'm so sorry. We're now on to the assessment. Is that right? Of going concern. I'm sorry about that. Just a bit.
We haven't done my item 10.
Oh, my
apologies. It sense to do it at the end so that.
Okay, we'll do it at the end. Okay, so we'll now take assessment of going concern, and I'm going to invite Teresa Fletcher, the Section 151 officer, to take us through this item. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Chair. This is a new report, but it's not a new concept. The concept of going concern assumes that an authority will continue to operate for the foreseeable future. In reality, if an authority were in financial difficulty, central government would step in to ensure services to the public continued. Previously, it has been assumed that councils are a going concern, but given the significant reductions in funding for local government and the economic effects of COVID, a formal assessment of our position for going concern has been carried out by me. The report details the areas I looked at in summary at section 1.6, with more detail throughout the report. Members will see in 2.1 that the result of my assessment is that the council is a going concern, and this will support the committee in approving the accounts, which is item 12, and provide assurance to our auditors, Mazars. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. Right, do any members have any questions on this report to Teresa, please? No. Okay, well, the recommendations are at 6.1 that the audit committee accepts the outcome of the assessments of the council's going concern status for the purpose of preparing the statement of accounts for 2019-20. Right, could I have someone to move that, please?
Councillor Clifton, move it,
Thank
Chair.
you. Somebody care to second that?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. All those in favour, please indicate. That is carried unanimously. Right, we'll move on now, if we may, to the Bolsover District Council Statement of Accounts. Originally agenda item 12, now agenda item 13, if I've got my corrections, my calculations correct. But then I've suddenly thought, no, it is agenda item 12 because we missed one of Jenny's. We're going to take that at the end. So it is agenda item 12, and that stretches, I'm delighted to report, from page 55 through to page 172. Over to you, Teresa, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be going through every page, you might be glad to hear. Appendix 1 is the statement of accounts version that was available at the time the agenda had to be sent out. As Mike's mentioned, since that time we've received the third valuation report from the pension fund. The figures, after taking account of the remedy for McLeod, have reduced by a material amount, and therefore the statement of accounts has been updated to reflect this in the consolidated income and expenditure statement and the balance sheet. The changes made are a reduction in the pension liability, so that's a benefit to the council, but they don't mean any tangible benefit to the council. They're just accounting entries at this stage. We've also added, as Mike also mentioned, a paragraph to note 4 and to note 11 on the valuation of the council's land and buildings for the material valuation uncertainty. And I'm quite happy once we've made all the changes, once they've been signed off by Mike, if you want me to send those through to everybody so you can have another look and then let me know if you've got any queries, then I can go through them individually with you. Apart from that, I'll be happy to answer any questions at this minute.
Sorry, thank you very much indeed, Teresa. Didn't mean to cut you off, my apologies. No, okay. Right, so you've heard that there need to be some amendments made to various aspects of this report. Are there any, at this stage, are there first of all any questions from members to the report, please? No? Okay. So my next question then to members is, do you wish to receive the relevant sections updated rather than the entire report updated, sent out by email by Teresa? And having received those, are you then happy, if you still have further questions, to make direct contact yourselves with Teresa? Are you all happy with that? David, are you happy with that? David Dixon? You are? Jim? Yes, and Tom? Okay, and clearly I'm happy with that. Okay, so the recommendations at this stage, are we able to take the recommendations in the light of your comments?
Yes, yes, you are.
We are.
Yes.
And just remind me, whereabouts are the recommendations?
6.1 and 6.2.
Are at 6.1 and 6.2 on page 56 of your paperwork. and they read that the Audit Committee approved the auditor's statement of accounts in respect of 2019-20, and 2, that delegated powers are granted to the Chief Financial Officer in consultation with the Chair or Deputy Chair of the Audit Committee to agree any changes agreed with the Council's external auditors, Mazars, which may be necessary to ensure the completion of the statement of accounts by the 30th of November 2020. So would somebody, one of the members, care to move that?
Councillor Clifton, move it, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Clifton. And that receive a seconder? Councillor Tom Kirkham has seconded that. Thank you. Right. All those in favour, please show. That's carried unanimously. And can I thank you again, Teresa, for your lengthy and detailed report. And I'm sure you will keep us updated as things develop. Thank you. So we'll move on now, if we may, please, to agenda item, which was agenda item 11. We will now take, if we may, agenda item 11, which is going to be presented by Jenny and is, if I can just fumble back to it, is the assessment of, well, we've had that. Sorry, Jenny, it's the report of the internal audit, summary of program internal audit plan. Is that it?
That's the one.
I got it. Thanks. It's just that my notes were in order, but now suddenly they're slightly juggled. And poor old Tom Scott, who put it all together, will be thinking, why is he fumbling with that? Well, I've caught up, Tom. You're all right. Right, Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report, it summarises the reports we've completed since this committee last met. So there's quite a number. So it covers the end of 2019-20 and also our first reports for the 2021 audit plan. So as you heard earlier, the 2019-20 plan was substantially completed and the details of that are in the annual report. So the remaining areas from there will either be completed this year or deferred to next year if necessary. We were late completing the 19-20 plan, as we've heard before, because of COVID-19, 2 members of audit leaving during the year and time associated with sit for apprenticeships. So that will have a knock-on effect on our ability to complete the whole of the 2021 audit plan. Progress has been slow, but we've found now that as recovery's got underway, it is easier to progress the audits now. One additional problem we have got is we've had a new internal auditor, and it is proving sort of more time consuming and difficult to train them up from a distance, because my team are still predominantly working from home. But if you turn to Appendix 1, you can see in the period we're talking about, we've issued 16 reports, and it's an excellent set of results. We've got 7 substantial assurance reports, which is our top category, and 9 with reasonable assurance, which we still view very much as a positive conclusion. There's no specific issues that I feel I need to raise with you from those reports. And again, you'll be pleased to note that we haven't encountered any fraud during our work. So Appendix 2 is a new appendix to try and keep you a bit more up to date with what's happening with the 2021 plan. At the time of writing the report, we'd only issued 3 reports so far. I have now issued another 2, and there's another 2 that are very close to being issued. And just to get it into context, at this time last year, we'd issued 8. So we are behind, but hopefully we'll catch up some of that, but I don't think we will be able to complete the whole of the 2021 plan. But I'll keep giving you regular progress reports at each meeting, and we'll also try and focus on the higher risk and medium risk areas and defer lower risk ones where that's possible. So the recommendations are the report be noted, and the impact of coronavirus on our ability to complete the whole of the 2021 plan be noted and approved. And I'll try and answer any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Jenny. Does anybody have any questions to the report? Please. No, in that case, I will be more than happy to move the recommendations on page 41 at 6.1 and 6.2. Report be noted and that the impact of coronavirus on the ability to complete the current audit plan and potential for future changes to the plan is noted and approved. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. It's been seconded by Councillor Clifton initially, who raised his hand first. Thank you very much indeed. All in favour, please show. Thank you very much indeed. Right. So just having a look now at where we're at. Agenda-wise, I think we are at the stage where I think we have got now to item 13, which is the work program. Okay, so the work program is identified at page 172, I believe, in your paperwork. I'm getting there. Right. So the report of the Head of Finance and Resources on the committee work programme. Teresa, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Appendix 1 is the 2021 committee work programme. It's very similar to last year's. We've removed items that aren't relevant for this year and added what new things we already know about. As usual, this is to give us structure, and we can move things between meetings if we need to and add new items later if necessary. Unless there are any questions, the recommendations at 6.1.
Does any member have any questions, please, to the report? Are you seeking to speak, Councillor Clifton? No, I've said, okay. Right, in that case, would one of you like to move the recommendation? Yes, thank you, Councillor Clifton. Has moved the recommendation at 6.1 and 6.2. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Dixon, thank you very much indeed. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you very much indeed. Right, so can I thank members and officers for their attendance today. That now includes the business of the meeting, and I shall close the meeting and ask for the live stream now to be ended. To the public who've been with us on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. And now